have honorary board members with us today.
Honorary board members.
Nice. This is my new puppy.
Wait a minute, while you get
Oh,
everything.
cute.
He's just
I'm going to go ahead and welcome. I just started recording this meeting. We've got many people online. Deb, you're facilitating today,
Yeah.
and you do have a quorum. So
Yay.
let me pull up the agenda for you all. It's good to see everybody. Right.
Are we ready? Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here for our February 19th, 2026 meeting. As Beth said, I'll be presiding today. And I wanted to thank Sabah for doing it last month for us until we get our Martha back. So the first order of business is we have to move to call our meeting to order. So do I have a motion for that?
I motion to start our meeting for
Thank you.
February 19th.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Tina. So we are officially into our meeting. And the next thing we need to do is approve our agenda from our January meeting. Do we have anybody who will move to approve the January board, the agenda from our January meeting?
Wait,
We
is it the minutes or
Oh, wait, no, first we have to approve this agenda, right? Sorry, guys. Thank you, Sabah. First, we have to approve today's agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Ben. Do we have a
I'll
second?
second. I second that.
Even though I took notes. Thank you. So we have we've been called to order, our agenda is approved, and now we need to approve our minutes from our last meeting in January. Does anybody want to move to approve the minutes, please? Or discuss the minutes?
You have a note from Sammy to make sure that we get an all in favor for every motion.
Thank you, Sammy. Thank you. Sabah was much better at this than I. So do I need to go back, Sammy, and do that?
I think if we just do an all in favor for the agenda and then move on to the minutes, we'll be good.
Okay.
I think that's fine.
Could we have an all in favor for the approval of the minutes for the
Aye.
last?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I've got Sabah, and then as approving first, moving, and then all in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
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 Okay, thank you for reminding me. Now, where are we? We approved the minutes, or do we have to go back and do it? We have to go back.
I don't think we have a motion
We
for
don't
the
have a
minutes.
motion to approve the minutes yet, so please, can we have a motion to approve?
I motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Ben. Second? Anybody?
I second.
Thank you, Tina. All in favor of approving the minutes from last month's meeting, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? No. Good. Thank you. Now, I didn't see any notion that we have a public comment.
We
So
don't.
we don't have any public comment for this meeting, although we do always welcome it. So let's move into our current business discussion items. And first we have Sammy.
Deb, I might
skipped past business.
I
didn't
might interrupt just for a second and make sure that we have on the record and in the recording a roll call, because that is a new requirement this fiscal year from the legislature.
Okay, sorry, y'all, we're going all the way back to the beginning. In addition to calling us to order, we have to have a roll call.
Mhm.
So I'll start with myself. I'm Deb DeTore, and I am presiding over this meeting for Martha, who's not here. Who wants to go next?
My name is Beth Dorado, and I serve as the director here at Gordon Burnell.
I'm Cynthia Arndell and have applied for position of new board member.
Sabah Ejadi, board member.
I'm Ben Sparks, board member.
Tina Martinez, board member.
Chris Kazan, principal.
Sammy is business manager.
Erica Rivas, and I'll be taking notes.
And then I know Jody is in the chat. And she's identified herself as Jody Bersha, also board member.
Thank you, everyone. Sorry, I'm so disorganized. I even took notes on how to do this.
You're doing
No.
great, Deb.
Liar, liar. So do we have any past business that we need to discuss? There's none that I saw.
So,
Nobody has anything to bring up. Okay, great. Now, current business discussion items. Take it away, Sammy.
Sounds good. Let me share. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
yes, ma'am.
Awesome. So we only have 2 bars this month. Both are just transfer bars. So this is just ensuring that we're not over budget at the function level for both of these funds. This is our CSI fund and then our IDEA-B fund. Looking at the actual bars, you'll see here there's no total amount. They zero out because it is just transferring within the fund. It's not an increase or a decrease. And so you'll see here's one, and here is the second one. Any questions on the bars? No? We'll keep on moving. Looking at some of our graphs, looking at our projected budget balance used by fund, I always like to point out these percentages. We do have a few that are slightly over this 100% just due to encumbrances. And so I'll be fixing those this month to make sure that we're not over anywhere. But you'll see most of our reimbursable funds are at a higher percentage, which is great. That's what we want to see at this point in the school year. Looking at our yearly expenditure comparison by month, no big changes here. We've stayed really consistent over the year, so nothing to note here really. Looking at our function code change in percentage by month, I always like to point this out because this is showing the instruction and instructional support. So this is the spending in the classroom, how much we're spending in the classroom. We've stayed really consistent, and so we're at about 65% this month. We've stayed around that 64, 63% all year, which has been great. That's really what we want to see, that we are spending our money in the classroom. Looking at our liquidity, we're sitting at about a 6.86. We've stayed very consistent over the year, which is great. That was our goal, to just kind of keep it real steady. Once we encumber the elevator for the building, it will probably change a little bit, but other than that, it's looking really good. Looking at our budget analysis, so this is similar to the graph that I went over above. It just gives a little bit more of a detailed breakout showing the budget, actuals, encumbrances, and how much is left. You'll see we have a few that are over that 100%. Like I was saying, this one is it's such a small amount that it didn't count as a percentage, but that one will also be corrected. I did highlight these during our finance committee meeting. I just wanted to point out that these 2 funds here, they're at 0% being spent because they have not been approved to be spent by APS yet. We have budget authority, but they just have not been approved, and they likely won't be this year, just due to how everything's working out with APS and the feds. So these 2 we probably won't see this year, and hopefully we'll see next year, but we'll see how everything goes. You'll see the rest, like I said, are high percentages. Anything else that's not a higher percentage carries over, so we don't necessarily have to spend those ones down. Any questions on any of our funds?
Sammy, I just have a question. Those 2 that we didn't get approved from APS to spend in the past, what were those expenditures for?
Yeah, I can speak to that. We have used both Carl D. Perkins and CTE programming funding in the past to pay for our OSHA certification provider, for part of the certifications that our students are getting in ServSafe through Three Sisters Kitchen. We've spent it on software in the past or on supplies for our CTE programming. Trying to think what else. I think the majority of it has been contracted services to those service providers who are certifying students, getting them industry recognized certifications in career technical education courses.
Because that's what Carl Perkins is for.
So are we able to leverage other funding to get those needs met?
We are still paying for those things right now. out of operational. And we talked about this some. The concern right now, none of APS, either the traditional district nor the charters, are receiving their Carl Perkins or CTE funding this year, as part of a corrective action plan that I'm not quite understanding in all its complexity. And so one of the issues, because this is federal money, and federal funding often has these rules, it's meant to supplement programming and not supplant it. So very regularly, there's a check. They look at what we spend this money on and make sure that we haven't spent operational money on these costs in the past. And we've all been backed into a corner because rather than cancel our programming in the lack of this funding flowing, we've covered it with operational funds. And now there's a concern that we won't be able to cover these same expenses next year with this funding, because it will then be a supplantation instead of a supplementation. We will have already spent it out of operational, so it won't be eligible expenses anymore. And that's problematic. More so for the larger traditional APS schools who have huge CTE programs than for this small budget for us. But the application for next year is already due, and we're being advised not to ask for things that we spent out of operational this year. And so we have to kind of reinvent how we might spend this $12,000 or so in the future. It usually fluctuates between 10 and 15, depending on how they allocate the funds across the district. So yeah, it is going to take some creative thinking about how to utilize these funds next year. I don't want to launch a new program where we are enjoying the programs that we're currently giving and we're maintaining and expanding and improving them. And so I'm not quite sure how to apply for this funding next year, given those constraints. But the application dropped Monday and is due March 13th. So there's a little time to think about it.
Is it possible, if this funding doesn't seem like it's going to be consistent and able to be acquired, rather than cut the programs, is this something that could be funded through a grant if we start applying for grants for this?
It could be. I think it could. Some of these same expenditures could also, we're hopeful that our work-based learning money, our innovation zone money that we got for the first time this year, continues. And so some of these expenses could be covered by that funding moving forward, by that line item and that PED grant, as opposed to these federal flow-through grants.
Okay.
But yeah,
So
there is opportunity for it to be covered in other ways moving forward.
if this turns into something that we're looking to cover through grants, I'll volunteer at this point to help write whatever grant funding we need to cover those program expenditures.
I appreciate that, Tina. I'll follow up with you and we'll connect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tina.
Awesome. Does anybody else have any questions on these? No? We will keep on moving. Here's our checklisting report. Didn't see anything that was out of the ordinary. Did anybody have any questions? No? Awesome. We will keep on moving. We have our more detailed reports that I always include in the packet, just going line by line of all of our expenses here for each fund. And then after that is our revenue down here. And then from there we have our balance sheet, so you can see where our cash is here. And then our statement of revenue, expenditure, and change in fund balance. We have our bank reconciliation, which we zero out. I always like to point out our outstanding check listing. We do still have the one check for a student here that is outstanding, but we have a plan to hopefully get that cashed soon. So hopefully this will be off of our books by next month, but if not, we will keep you guys posted. And then of course, we tie to our January 31st bank statement. Any questions on any of this? No? Awesome. I do want to give a quick audit update for everyone. The audit for APS was released just yesterday. And so I'm going to give a quick recap, and then Beth is going to send out some more information after this, and then we can kind of have a deeper discussion about it if we need to at the next meeting. But we did end our audit with 2 findings. One was a other non-compliance, and one was a significant deficiency. The other non-compliance was due to us not updating the employee handbook in a timely manner. The leave policy was approved by the governing council in 2024, and the change that was needed in the handbook didn't get in there in time. And so the auditors found that, and so it did become a finding. And then our second one, which was a significant deficiency because of the dollar amount, it was around $42,000, was due to an entry that was provided to the auditors from me based on our prepaid entries when the auditors wanted this amount included in our SABITA entry. So it was a subscription-based asset entry, but the auditors did our subscription-based asset entries. So, and they didn't return them to me until the end of the audit. And so I included this amount in our prepaid entries because it was prepaid, but they said that it shouldn't have been in prepaids. It should have been in the assets, but they did the assets. So I didn't know to not include it until after the audit was pretty much done. And so, I talked with the auditor a lot, and I did try to get the finding removed just based on how it all panned out. And he understood. He didn't necessarily agree with what I was saying, but he was like, yeah, I understand why you did that. I understand why you think this. That makes complete sense, but I still have to give you a finding. And so I did my best, but that one he would not remove. And so I did make sure for next fiscal year audit, I told him, well, I'm going to wait to submit any of my entries then until you give me your entries so that I can make sure this doesn't happen again. And he said that was fine. So, so that's kind of a quick overview of it. Beth, did you want to add anything?
I think what the Finance and Audit Committee discussed was, since it was just released yesterday, we did want Sammy to do a brief overview this evening so that you're aware of what is now public knowledge and on the state auditor's website. And then we will forward you the actual audit findings, in which you can see all of our audit results, including the findings, so that you can take a longer look at that. And then we'll have it on as a discussion item again next month. We just wanted to make sure that that you were aware that the audit was released, that there are 2 findings, and then we will forward you the complete audit paperwork for your review, and then we can return to conversation if you guys want at a later date once you've had a chance to review those documents. But if you have questions now for Sammy, no reason to wait. We just wanted to acknowledge that you didn't actually have the paperwork in front of you to engage in a lot of discussion, but we didn't want to let you know that the audit was now public. Cool. Deb, we usually address the action items related to finance right after Sammy's report so that she can get on her way. That would be action item B and C.
So in order to do that, we need a motion to approve the accounts and payroll vouchers. Do I have anybody to approve those? Motion for that, rather.
I'll motion to approve the accounts and payroll vouchers.
Thank you, Salah.
And I'll second.
Thank you, Ben. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Right.
Okay, thank you. And then we also need to approve the budget, the bars. Do we have anybody, a motion to approve the bars for this month?
I'll motion to approve the bars.
And I'll also second.
Thank you, Ben. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Sammy.
Thank you, Sammy. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
We typically move into the director's report, and one of the first things in my director's report, hold on, I have it. was just a potential new board member. And so I was very pleased when the nominating committee, which consists of Jody and Martha, agreed or moved to nominate Dr. Cynthia Arnell as a board member. I did forward the full board her resume and a letter of interest for review. And I don't know, Jody, if you're in a space where you can facilitate any conversation or questions, or if we want to have some discussion before we move to the motion. Or if any board member has thoughts or comments or questions. I know Jody's was traveling and we want her to remain safe, so we do have a quorum without her if needed.
Anybody have questions or comments? Cindy's here if we wanted to talk to her.
Hi.
Let me introduce Cindy, Dr. Cindy Ardell. No comments? Shall we just then go ahead and move to approve Dr. Cynthia Arndell as our newest member? If so, I need a motion to approve.
I motion to approve.
Thank you, Ben. Second?
I second.
Thank you, Tina. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Welcome.
Welcome, Cindy. You can board on and you can vote for anything else you hear. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm super excited to include you as we move forward, and very appreciative for your interest and your willingness to be here. I'm going to kind of jump through some of the other highlights from my director's report here. I don't know if people had a chance to look at the, and I apologize when I opened that after I sent it to you, it's a pretty crooked scan there, but an interesting letter all the same from Secretary of Education about the future for schools who do not exit MRI status. So again, remember the state is evaluating the school based on a set of metrics that doesn't always apply to re-engagement schools like us. But we are identified as a school in need of most rigorous intervention because our graduation rates do not meet the state minimum of 67%. I do want to acknowledge that we graduate and have, for as long as I've gone back and looked at the data, 60 to 80% of our seniors every single year. But they're not measuring whether seniors are graduating. They're measuring whether 4, 5, or 6-year cohorts are graduating. So they're requiring all schools to graduate students in their 4th year of high school, 5th year of high school, or 6th year of high school. And we graduate quite a few students who are in their 7th year of high school or 8th year of high school, or actually transition to our adult education program and get a high school equivalency. And we don't get credit for any of those high school equivalencies, and we don't get credit for any of those students who are older than the more traditional high school age. And we don't get any credit for students who graduate early. And we get a couple of those every year. And so it's a weird metric, but here we are. We have had struggled based on their metric of graduation rate for long enough that they are requiring some more drastic interventions. We are not alone. There are 140 schools in MRI status who will not be exiting across the state this accountability cycle. There are many schools that did exit with the interventions and the support that they received from PED. And so there are some good news stories in terms of some schools being able to turn their data around. The schools that are not exiting are being given 3 options, and they're kind of harsh. Option 1 is we can close and send students to a higher performing school. Option 2 is called a close and restart, and that is when leadership is removed. The school is closed, leadership is removed, and new leadership, everybody in the school has to reapply with new leadership. That's called a close and restart. And the third option is significant redesign and restructure. And I have been assured we get to choose which option we want in an application that is set to we hear will be released in late March. If that letter, it was pointed out to us that that letter gives PED the authority to choose differently than the school if the secretary and the department so desire. And so I have been assured by our team who is supporting us through these interventions that Gordon Burnell is expected to redesign and restructure. That nobody at the PED is going to attempt to close us. Nobody at the PED is interested in a close and restart and the removal of myself and my leadership team. That we will be supported as we move through restructure and redesign. I think that is going to be just in the form of our 90-day plan. But it does give us the opportunity to think really and be very reflective about how we can serve students better. And so there are some things that leadership has been discussing around, that could feel pretty significant in terms of changing how we operate with the better student success at the center of what we do. So we do have a committee that's just going to get started tomorrow, where any staff member is welcome to join, and it's an open invitation to you all as well. We would love if you have time and interest to join our restructure planning committee. We're going to set a pretty tight timeline for that. And much of that work is going to be done asynchronously because some of the proposals are significant and people are going to have very emotional responses to that. I'm not interested in refereeing those debates, and I certainly want. I'm approaching this as a think tank. I want everyone's opinion. I want everyone to have an opportunity to look at proposals and think about how to complement them or think about consequences of decisions that we might not be thinking of. And so it's an open invitation to the board and all staff members, and we'll also have an opportunity for students to look at some of these options and provide feedback. But the timeline is kind of looking like this. I'm gonna roll out tomorrow a Google form where any staff member can submit an idea for what restructuring and redesign could look like. I'm open to all kinds of proposals, half developed. They don't have to have complete ideas, or they can. And so we're going to have a short period where we're going to accept any proposal for change. And then I'd like to take all of those ideas and organize them in a way that the entire committee can look at them and can really provide feedback on them. What different ideas might get combined, complement each other really well. Again, what ideas may be incomplete but are exciting, what ideas they don't agree with. So we'll have a period where people can respond to these proposals and provide feedback. And then we're going to kind of take all of that information and try to get an executive summary put together of what restructuring and redesign looks like from multiple perspectives. And that will be certainly something that I'll show back with the board. I'm hoping to align that for the next board meeting. And so a pretty tight timeline, a week or two to propose changes, a week or two to elevate them because we love them or tear them down because we hate them. And then hopefully take all of that body of information and kind of say, this is where we're headed. Just to give you an example, some proposals that have already been shared that I like MDC has two distinct populations right now. We have students that we serve in our school pods. And for our younger students, we do something called pod walking, meaning if a student can't come to school, we go to them. And our pod walking program is not very successful. And the reality is many of those students are being rewarded for bad behavior, in my opinion. So they get into fights in the pod, they tattoo themselves in the pod, they get caught with contraband in the pod, they get moved out of the pod into a restrictive housing unit, and we go right out to work with them. And they're not making much academic progress. They're not super invested in school. And they take a ton of our resources away from students who are willing to sacrifice keeping their nose clean out in jail or are here at this campus and don't have the support that they might need to stay engaged. And so one suggestion is if students can't move to the school pod, we don't have a whole army of staff trying to serve them. And there's consequences to that decision, but that's one proposal, right, that we're considering. Other things at this campus that, right now we're still very much a drop-in center with not a lot of structure, and we have a lot of students on campus. And so structuring a little more for students are here more often, adopting a schedule might help them make progress a little quicker. Centralizing some roles and responsibilities. Right now, we ask a lot of our advisors. So thinking about how we allocate staff, maybe centralizing an early warning system, staff member so not everyone's trying to do that might be helpful for staff. Looking at an alternative online setting for some of our students who are really struggling with discipline and behavior, as opposed to eventually kind of pushing them out. Maybe offering some space where they can continue online and then earn privileges to be on campus again. Thinking about maybe academics in the morning and work-based learning and enrichment in the afternoon. There's a ton of ideas. And so those are some examples, but I'm certainly interested in those quiet voices on our staff that haven't been as vocal, making sure we hear from them, and then giving everyone an opportunity to tear apart some of these ideas and help us think of what we're not thinking of. So that's the idea. The hope is to have a pretty clear picture of what significant redesign and restructure could look like for the high school program next year by the March board meeting, because that also aligns with when we think this application is going to drop, and we don't want to wait for the application. We want to have an idea. Because we think we know the way the APS works, it'll drop and the turnaround will be quick tomorrow. And we also want to honor the tradition of having letters of intent out to staff around spring break, because not everyone may be interested in engaging in what the future looks like. And we want to make sure that we're offering people positions that they can be thoughtful about and either accept or not. In a timely manner before this school year ends. So I would like to have letters of intent out at the end of March as well, so people know what they're signing up for and can make decisions for themselves if it doesn't feel like something that they want to engage in. I know that some staff members out at MDC may not want to come down here. They may would rather go look for employment in other correctional settings because that's where they really want to be. So I don't want to wait too long and then surprise people with what redesign and restructure looks like.
Would your funding have to be allocated differently in some areas, or is there?
Not funding does play into this some. If we don't pod walk, then we could lose about 15 students, and we know that high school is a per pupil funded formula. And so if we lose a couple students, could that reduce in funding? It could, but we're hopeful that we retain more in the school pod when there's consequences for getting kicked out of the school pod. We don't just follow you. We also, if we reallocate some staff members down here, we're hopeful that we retain more students down here. So the gamble is that we would make up those 15 students or so in other spaces where those staff members are having a bigger impact. it's not, that's the one funding piece that could shift, right? If we're stop serving a population out at the jail, will that affect numbers? I think we can maintain the same numbers by reallocating and being thoughtful. But there is a risk, right? That initially we would have a drop of 15 doesn't sound like a lot, but it is. Depending on how a students generate revenue based on a lot of different factors. So every student generates a dollar amount based on the state equalization guarantee, which is called SEG. So the state of New Mexico does things very differently than other states do. We don't fund public schools based on local property taxes. We collect all of the funding in one big pot. A good chunk of it in the state does come from oil and gas. And then we redistribute that money to schools based on a funding formula. So every student generates a set amount of revenue, and then students can generate additional monies based on their special education status, based on their at-risk status, and based on a pretty complicated formula. It changes every year. Sammy hates it when I do math like this, but generally speaking, a student is worth like that comes out really bad. They're not worth anything. But students generate between $8,000 and $10,000 a person. So 15 students is a salary, and benefits. It's a significant amount of money. But I do think we can make up those numbers by reinforcing programs in other spaces. Besides that one proposal, it really doesn't impact funding at all. It's just about how we are distributing it, how we're assigning roles and responsibilities, and how we're changing some of our systems to better serve students. That was a lot of talking. Any thoughts or questions about any of that?
I have a question, Beth. My experience with restructuring and MRI schools is a little out of date. I haven't been in a school that has been in that situation in a while, but from my recollection, once your plan is submitted and the state is like, yes, there was a lot of state walkthroughs where the state would come through, and I'm sure they don't call them walkthroughs anymore, but observations, basically. They're taking what your plan was and going to actually see what's going on. Is that still the protocol? Is that still the procedure that the state is taking with MRI schools?
We have been monitored for these last 3 years. The state, and that, if I scroll down just a little bit, this SITM, School Intervention and Transformation Monitoring, these visits currently are happening 3 times a year. And we do have a group of, it's been anywhere between 3 to 5 PED employees from the Priority Schools Bureau come out. APS typically sends a representative as well. And so we've been in that monitoring system for the last 3 years. I don't know what will change in this new, this is like we're moving up. The hope was that work would get us out of designation, right? That monitoring. And now we're looking at a new, another 3 years where we're in a different stage of restructuring. I don't know if that monitoring will become more frequent in this new kind of category or not. I consider everyone who's come to date an ally. They appear to understand us. They've done and appreciate what we're trying to do and think really thoughtfully about how they can contribute to our continuous improvement. They've never approached as in an adversarial role by any means. It has to date been a very supportive relationship with PED in that system, at least in our experience. I can't speak to how other schools are experiencing that oversight, but they have been active thought partners in how we craft our 90-day plan and do some of our strategic stuff that's been helpful. The being in this space has also generated funds. We've gotten about $200,000 a year in resources to support transformation. I've laughed in previous years, if they're going to keep giving me money, then they can keep calling us whatever they want to call us. I would love it if they used the different metrics and really measured what we're trying to do instead of comparing us to more traditional school. They say they can't do that based on federal law. So, the concern about what happens after this restructure, after another cycle, was brought up to Priority School Bureau leadership. And she said, well, in 3 years, we'll have a new governor, we'll have a new Secretary of Education, and we'll be lucky if they don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, as they do during most of those transitions. And so at this point, we're being assured that we'll be supported through the process. And that may mean additional monitoring.
If the state, in my experience, the state used to do kind of a debrief after the walkthroughs. They'd sit down with leadership or whatever committee was in charge of that. If they're still doing that, is there an opportunity for board members to sit in? I'd like to hear what they're saying instead of just reading it on the 90-day plan. Is that possible?
That would be super possible. Those things are planned several weeks in advance. And so I will make sure to share that out with the board. And if anyone's available and interested in joining, I think that they would welcome that, Tina.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. We're not expecting them. We just did our MOI meeting on February the 9th, middle of year. They do BOI, MOI, and EOI, beginning of year, middle of year, and end of year. That's an acronym that we use a lot in education. So I'm not expecting them again until EOI, end of year. But I will certainly make a note to make sure the board is aware of that date and time if you're interested. Very sad Destiny had to leave us. If you've met Destiny, she's amazing. She was covering our adult ed front desk during adult ed hours. She's a graduate of our program. She just had a flurry of personal things come up, and she would have had to, she's about to undergo some medical procedures, and she would have had to put in a tremendous amount of paid time off. And she just said, I just don't want to do that to you. So I did encourage her to let us know when she's ready to go back to the workforce, because she didn't burn any bridges with us. And in the meantime, we have some of our work-based learning student interns covering that space for the rest of the year. And then we will look to rehire or continue using it as an intern space if our work-based learning program continues, which I certainly hope that it does. So super sad about Destiny leaving us. No financial updates this month. Some just kind of general updates that I'm happy to talk about if you have interest. I try to include the Monday morning memo link every month in my report, a breakdown of professional development, which was a request several months ago. We've been on some really amazing field trips. Chris Pauls and Jake LaBelle, our high school administrator here in the community, and our high school social worker, and I have been visiting similar schools to get a picture of how they approach discipline and behavior. Our current matrix is very flexible, and historically that has worked for us. They are struggling with a rambunctious group of adolescents that love to do all the adolescent things. Traditionally we served older students, and as our population gets younger and larger here, they're drag racing in the parking lot and smoking weed in the corner and making out in the bushes and all the things that adolescents love to do. And so we're really interested in a more standardized approach that has progression of interventions and a progression of kind of what is the word that he keeps using? I just spaced it. Reparations for post-behavior incidents, so that they're less as we still want to include something that says or at the discretion of the administration, but we don't want everything to be at the discretion of the administration. They're really looking for something that is definable and repeatable and predictable for students as well, because right now our matrix is like, it it starts off as a warning and can get really serious. But what they're looking for is something that students can predict as well, something that we can share with students, that this is what happens when this happens, and this is what you can expect when that happens. And so super excited to bring you probably some policy changes in next month or soon that comes out of that work.
So that'll go in your student handbook
That'll go in my student handbook
and to your parents.
and to the parents up in the classrooms. There are, I don't see one in here, but most classrooms downstairs have the current behavior matrix, posted, and they're just looking for it to be a more comprehensive document so that those interventions can be standardized and expected, predictable from students for students. So that's been exciting though. It's been fun to go out to see what other schools are doing at this point. The next section here, I'm not going to go over all of it because many of it is the same from previous months. I kind of leave this here. These are all of the different performance frameworks or different oversight, continuous oversight that we are grateful to be a part of. Like, how do I finish that sentence? There's our VISTAs, our state report card. You can always click on that. That's our MRI designation, right? That's the data that the state uses to categorize schools. And we struggle because of our population. And I say it now, and I say it in all the meetings with the state. We don't work with this population because they trend well with the data. And the only way our data will significantly improve the way that the state wants us to is if we change our population, and that's not what we're doing.
That academic progression calculation.
So what is new and on your action item for this afternoon is our 90-day dash. I only sent that yesterday though, and so I can certainly share it and talk about it right now. You can vote to table approval until next month if you guys would like more time to look at that. Again, it was only approved yesterday by PED. I had hoped it would be approved earlier in the week so you'd have more time to look at it. The dash, and I'll talk about it briefly, and then you guys can decide if you want to vote on it or wait. And I meant to put this in the email yesterday, and I forgot. I got sidetracked. The first 10 pages of this 14-page document is our annual plan, and it has not changed from what you guys approved in the fall. And so our core team, the goals that we set, the 90-day, the DASH platform is a strategic planning tool that could be really meaningful. And I want to choose my words wisely. Because we are an MRI school, this process is heavily monitored and influenced by a reviewer and a coach. And what we end up with isn't always what we started off with, because there's a very clear pattern of what they want to see. And so we didn't get to choose our goals in the annual plan. Our goals were chosen for us. And guess what they are? To improve all the metrics from the VISTAs, to improve our graduation rate, to improve our SAT scores. Those are not the goals we want to start with, because not with the metrics that they use, right? And so in some ways, because things like our goals are pre-written for us based on our categorization, I feel that waters down this tool in terms of how it can actually, its implementation can really support what we're trying to do. But all the same, we kind of, there are other places where we get to be really genuine. And so while our summative school-wide goal is to increase our SAT scores, which isn't something that we're invested in, we can say that the benchmark school for that is to increase the number. So if the school-wide goal that was set by PED for us is to get better at English language arts on the SATs, then our benchmark goal is we want to see more students earn English language art credit. That's legitimate. We do want to see more students progress through English language arts credit, because that means they're increasing their skills in reading and writing. And so and then our connection is if we award more credit, then we're preparing them to do better on the SATs, right? So there are places where we get to regain ownership of this document and really make it our own. The goals are from the annual plan. The performance challenges are from our annual plan. And so we do want to make sure that we're consistently using highly qualified instructional materials and that we're differentiating them for our students. That's and we want to make sure that we're really making sure to help support our English language learners. And we really want to make sure that our advisory model is helping students navigate their way through our program. And so our performance challenges remain the same from last fall. Our root cause analysis remain the same from last fall. So none of this is new from the annual plan and the 90-day plan that you guys saw last semester. This is what's new, is the 90-day plan for the spring. And so we really want to make sure that in our instruction in our core classes, ELA, math, and science, that teachers are not only providing direct instructional practices, which was our 90-day fall plan, but this time what's different is we want instructors to really identify for students how this particular work that they're working on in class today ties to them earning credit. Because we have a lot of students that come to class and then don't earn credit. And so, we want our teachers to really tie into their instructional blocks. This writing assignment can work for any of the English classes that you might be in. So that's the connection, right, that we're really trying to do there. It gets a little lost, again, in translation when our reviewer and coach rewrites things, but that's just the reality of where we are. And so she really she wanted to make sure that teachers are posting learning objectives. And then we really fought for it to be credit aligned learning objectives. And so the idea being not just we're not just working on summarizing a text, but by working on summarizing this text, if you turn this in, it counts here for earning credit. Because remember, our teachers may be teaching English to a group of students, and in that room, there are students working on lit strats, which means that they don't even have the skills yet to earn core credit. So they're reading at the elementary school level. We have students in that room that are in 9th grade English, 10th grade English, 11th grade English, and 12th grade English. So what we're really trying to do with this goal is to have teachers say, this is how this group, we're working on this, and it counts towards this credit. Mm-hmm. So to just capitalize on what students are doing in class and help translate that into credit, progress towards credit acquisition. So that's a lot, that's complicated. But what we're hoping staff just start doing is saying, hey, I'm working on economics right now. This small group, if we come together and get this economics packet done and turned in, you're all one step closer to economics credit instead of just having an economics topic, right? That they're actually aligning what they're doing during directed learning blocks to credit acquisition. That's this first goal. The second goal is about really making sure that we're not just writing ILPs, but that we're beyond compliance for individualized learning plans and into quality. Are we breaking down the steps in small enough chunks for students? Are we monitoring their progress closely enough? And so this critical action is just all about making sure that we're monitoring individualized learning plans. And so there's a plan for how we're doing that. And then the last one around English learning proficiency is our real goal here is our instructional staff really accessing the data to understand what level, proficiency level their students are currently at in English. And so there's this is the plan. And I am stand for questions. I'm happy if you guys table this and want more time to look at it, given you only got it yesterday afternoon. But current state statute does require that the board review and approve every 90-day plan after PED does.
Don't forget you have to do Toxapaw.
I saw that this morning when I was looking at this again. So you guys can think about that. I did update the SITM with our we didn't get the middle of year summary back yet. By the time I sent this out, I've received it since. It doesn't require your approval, but I will link it on the next report. And we also started looking at academic progression calculations. This is interesting and new. There's just this idea. We used to say that a student was on track to graduate based on the number of credits they had. But now we're going to say a student is on track to graduate based on their credit attainment rate. Because some students only need 4 credits forever. And that doesn't really show us they're on track to graduate, just because they could do it within the next semester. And so I think that this is going to really help us identify how students are, at what rate they're earning credits. And so it's something that we're going to do together as a whole staff on a monthly basis for the rest of the year. I'm having a hard time opening this.
Opened it at home.
Like it's just not open hyperlink. Let's try it that way. There we go. And so we're looking at students, how many months they've been here, how many credits they've earned. You divide the number of credits by the number of months and you get an academic progress rate. And we're part of our new advisory guide, which was that second goal on the dash, was that everyone's following the advisory guide, is that we're setting an expectation that students are earning a half a credit a month. If a student comes to us with 0 credits and they earn half a credit a month, it'll take them 4 years. That means they're progressing at the same rate they would at a traditional school. That's going to be our new bare minimum expectation. And students who aren't earning at that rate, we're going to do an academic intervention plan. We're going to put them on a contract. We're going to talk about how to support them better. What we'd really like them to be is at a credit or more a month, because then if they had 0 credits, they would take them 2 years to graduate. That's an accelerated credit recovery program, which is what we want to be. And as you can see, we have a lot of students in the red who are earning credits at a slower rate than that. And so we've said, well, they're on track based on their number of credits, but I really like this. And this came out of those conversations with that PED monitoring team. And so they've really been good thought partners in helping us think about how we're doing this. Notice all those U's. I forget what the U stands for. You can't divide something by 0. In math, that's a word that starts with U. Undefined? Is it? I don't know. So the U's are students who've been here for less than a month. And so just interesting to see, we are consistently bringing in new students, right? And so it's kind of interesting to look at. But this is an interesting new metric that we like in terms of how we improve advisement, and are excited about. I think that just about brings me to the end. We did complete our APS desk audit since the last time I reported to you, so you're welcome to look at that. There's nothing too exciting in it. We looked at most of that data together last month that they're tracking. PED accreditation is consistently updated, so if you're interested, you could check that out. Accreditation is new. There are 10 other metrics that were being tracked. And then at the end of every year, PED will either give us accreditation or not. We're doing fairly well on that, but you're welcome to take a look or ask any questions. And then that adult ed dashboard will look different every month as well. That link is worth checking out because it shows, wow, it shows how our adult ed program is doing month to month. We are Gordon Burnell, and the state tracks a lot of things. MSGs are measurable skill gains. EFL gains are educational functional levels, and they track our post-testing rates as well. So I'm happy to explain what any of that means or go into any detail. Green is where we want to be, and we're in the yellows, but we're close to green. Green is meeting or beating the state's goals. And so happy to talk about that, but also aware of the time. So I will leave it up to you if there are things in the generally in the performance framework section that you want to talk about or have questions about. And then any discussion you guys have about whether or not you're ready to approve our spring 90-day plan or whether you need some more time to review it in detail.
Beth, would us waiting till next month like delay implementation of this 90-day plan?
Absolutely not.
Then let's go ahead and do that if that's okay with you guys.
So then what we need to do is table this. Is that correct?
You're looking for a motion to
So
table.
we need a motion to table the approval of the spring 90-day plan.
A motion to table.
Thank you, Ben. I'll second that.
Ben, thank you, Sava. All in favor of tabling the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Thank you all. So we'll put that on the agenda for next month.
Does anybody have any questions about anything else that was in the report? I certainly don't want to rush through things, but also don't want to take up too much time.
I know for me, Beth, when I have a chance to really look at it, because I didn't look at it, it just popped up.
Same.
But then hopefully next month, I'll be able to more intelligently discuss what I don't understand or do understand.
Same.
I do think what's left then, there's typically a discussion around board priorities, and I think this is an appropriate time. One of the priorities of the board that Deb wants to talk about is how we support Martha and her new baby. So we can talk about that. And then I also just want to note that we are on board for annual training March the 14th from 9 to 2. And hopeful that all 7 members can attend. I know Martha is planning on attending. And if you can't attend, sometimes the board would prefer to reschedule. And sometimes that's not possible. There are asynchronous options as well to complete annual training. Wanted to throw that out as something for you all to include in your discussion.
And I just have one question about it. Since new members have a different number of hours that have to be earned, does this address their needs as well, Beth?
That's what I was going to ask. Actually.
I will defer answering because I want to make sure. I want to ask Kelly. I think Kelly can include many of these hours into what you need to do as a new board member. And then typically there is a little extra that you have to do as well. Some of those hours can be completed in kind of an orientation to the school. And I have that prepared. And so I will reach out to Ben and Cynthia about making sure that we understand what first year training looks like and how it differs. But my understanding is this will count for a good chunk of that.
Okay. So it's appropriate for me.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember, Tina, how different yours was from the rest of us last year?
I think there were 3 or 4 sections that was like an online training that you had to do, and it was pretty much videos and then like a quiz or some kind of check-in afterwards to make sure you got all of the relevant points. It did take a while. I want to say it was like 3 to 5 hours of extra work on top of the us being all together.
It's like
And
defensive driving.
Yeah.
I know that last year there was a change in statute related to the number of hours that board members have to complete. And there was a reduction in annual and new year. And so again, that's why I wanted to check with Kelly and make sure that we're compliant. But I'm hopeful that that means that the new year stuff is a little reduced as well from what you had to do, Tina. But I've also heard that some of it is helpful. And so
Well, that's what.
time well spent is
Yeah.
still okay. But there were changes after last legislative session.
So then I guess the question is, are we all still on board for March 14th? Does that still work for all of us? Yeah, okay. So you can just move forward with Kelly for sure on that then.
Perfect.
Okie dokie. Well, our next board meeting is March 20th, 2026. And I hope everybody's going to be here.
Do you want to talk briefly about a gift for Martha?
Oh, I forgot I was doing that.
Can I ask a question real quick? The March 20th is on a Friday. Is that
Oh, no,
correct?
No,
No.
it is not correct.
That's not correct.
Okay.
You're right. Thank you.
It would have
I'll-
been the
the
19th?
The 19th.
Thank you,
Okay.
Tina.
Yes.
And I will update that on this agenda so that it is, and we should make a note of that in the notes, Erica, as well. That there was discovered a
Error in our agenda.
a typo and error in our agenda, and the next board meeting is March the 19th.
It's always
My
Thursday.
apologies. Mhm.
And yes, let's talk about Martha under our board priorities. So we all agreed that we'd like to do something about a gift certificate. I have no idea about how much or whatever. I'm thinking maybe Amazon or something like that makes it easy for her out where she's living. I personally thought that maybe $30 from myself would be a good number, but it's up to y'all how much you ever want to contribute. You can email me and let me know, and then at our meeting you can give me the money and I'll just buy it and we can give it to her when she's there for the meeting. Does that work for everybody?
Mhm.
The meeting on the 14th. Okay.
Yeah, well, I put the 14th training because she'll be here and we can do
Okay.
it then. So if anybody has any ideas other than that, I would love to hear them. I just can't figure out how to make this work with all of us sort of everywhere else except on the 14th.
Just to clarify, you're going to give it to her at the meeting, so you're going to want the money ahead of time, right?
Or just tell me what you think you want to, what you might want to.
Okay, then we'll pay you back.
I'll
Got
go
it.
and
Okay.
write and you can pay me back on the 14th.
Okay.
And does like an Amazon gift card sound good to everybody?
That sounds
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, so let me know what you're thinking, how much you want to do. I'll buy a gift card. We'll give it to her then. And I think that I know she'll appreciate it. So,
Can we, do you, just so that you have money ahead of time, do you do Venmo? What's the easiest way for us to do that?
I don't do any of those modern things. You saw me. Poor Beth had to set me up for this.
That's fine.
So are you thinking just cash in person on that day?
Cash, check, or money order will work.
Okay, okay.
If that works for y'all, if it doesn't, well, we can meet and discuss a payment plan. Okay, so we had talked about doing our bylaws review at our annual training because we sort of did that with Kelly last time and worked as a group to work on that. Does that still sound like something we can work into our training? Go ahead, Ben.
Thumbs up. Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. So then we'll just tell Kelly that we want to do that as well.
I will let her know that you all would like to dedicate some time to bylaws, and yeah, she tailors these to kind of what you guys want a lot of the time.
Maybe there may be other schools. I don't know if y'all read that in her note to us, but there may be other schools. So this will be sort of a new beginning. I mean, a new training that we're not so accustomed to. So maybe it won't be possible. If other
Certainly can
schools
ask
don't
them.
want to, but we sure ask. Okay. I think we've got it. What time is it, Beth?
5:11.
Would anybody make a motion, please, that we adjourn our February 19th, 2026 board meeting at 5:11 today?
A motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Ben. Second.
I second.
Thank you, Tina. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. See you on the 19th, not the 20th. Thank you again for that, Tina.
And on the 14th.
And on the 14th.
Even
March
before that.
too. That's right. We'll see you before.
Thank you, everybody. It's wonderful to see you. Looking forward to time together.
Yeah.
We good.
Thank you all. Take care.
Yep.
Getting to know everybody.
Yeah, when Martha and I first started, it was Martha and I and this other group of people who've been with it for a while. We